on one of these episodes.
It's been much too long. And I'm really happy to see that you're in the season finest. Uh, and so, without coordination, we both show up with a little bit of holiday garb here.
Well, there's definitely a clue to the viewers as to what time of the year it is. We're here with our, I mean, you're wearing that's your workout shirt, I think you said. So the people in your neighborhood are going to have a bit of a treat with you running past their houses. And I've got the old Christmas hat here because it is just, what is it now, a couple of weeks before Christmas. And that actually brings me on to the topic that I wanted to talk about today. I've been on the road quite a bit, speaking all over the country. As you know, this year's been a busy year. And, an interesting thing has happened over the last few months. It started kind of towards the end of the summer here in the US, where I would get feedback from my audiences and from clients that we're working with. They would say, Morné, we need your help. It seems like my pipeline is getting stuck. We have opportunities, we're talking to people, but nobody's making any decisions. And I said, really? Why is that? Well, there's a lot of uncertainty here in the US about the upcoming election in November, and that uncertainty is making people conservative and inhibited about actually making decisions. I said, okay, well, that's good news. Is the day after the election, I'm sure the pipeline's going to move. Well, no, Morné, that's not the case because, only a couple of weeks after the election, then it's going to be Thanksgiving and nothing really happens during Thanksgiving. So I thought about it and I said, well, the good news is the Friday after Thanksgiving, then the pipeline's going to move. Well, no, because then it's only 3 weeks until Christmas. Jack, I can't seem to win. Every single time I try and come up with a solution, what I'm told is there's another significant event just around the corner, and that's the reason the pipeline isn't moving. So what I wanted to talk today about is mindset, limiting beliefs, and what I'm finding is a little bit of a culture of excuse making around seasonality. And I really want to talk about, you're I think, the poster child for consistency. So I want to talk a little bit about consistency and banking progress and not falling into these traps, these apathetic traps about, well, it's not happening because.
Um, you have hit on something that has bothered me most of my life in sales because the people that are not putting up their numbers are going to go with their fingers looking like you just articulated,
Right.
as opposed to putting the fingers this way and saying, what is it that maybe I'm not doing? Uh, you know, Karen Kopp, you and I both have her as a friend, and she's terrific in the whole world of sales as well. And every December, she early in December she sends a similar email out to all of her our public saying this is one of the best months um, for prospecting.
Mm.
um, that the gatekeepers are away. There's a relaxation and there's accessibility where prior to holiday season, it may be a little bit tougher to get into. Well, just like you just said, that is a real switch on mindset because the mindset that we typically run into is, well, I'm not going to hustle that much during this month because everybody's distracted and they're out of budget and they're waiting for the new year and they're in their planning and they're running for numbers and blah, 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 blah. And yet, um, the calendar for a lot of people is not as jammed. So instead of giving you 10 minutes, you might get an hour
Mm.
with a key decision maker. All we need to do is have the discipline. That is the word, the discipline to say, let's go after it and give this a try. Because once I heard Karen talk about that years ago, I'm going, you know what? I'm going to have my salespeople go out there and really hustle during that month. And we'd have some of the best Januaries and Februaries in the history of the company. But January and February good numbers don't come because of activity in January and February. It happens because of activity in November and December in most of our
Mm.
businesses.
Mm.
So, you know what? The word you use, mindset, which is a favorite of mine. The
Yeah.
word that I use is discipline. Uh, and you're being really nice by giving me airtime here. So let me take a little bit more.
Please.
as you know, I was in the mortgage business with several companies that I built.
Yeah.
And the salespeople in that industry are paid 100% commission only. That's the typical compensation plan for a salesperson. And in the mortgage business, what happens is the majority of your loans close in the last week because you need less money at the closing table. So the closer you get to the last day of the month, the less money the home buyer needs to cough up at the point of closing. So what happens is there's this, there, if you visualize the snake that just took in an animal and it's in its belly moving its way down, there's this big piece of animal in there uh, that's going to push through. And the people the at the corporate office that are doing the processing, the underwriting, and all of those things that are necessary to get that loan through to the finish line, they're really busy. But the salespeople, if they've got 3 more deals that they could close that month, their paycheck's going to be that much better 2 weeks from now. So they feel compelled to go in and quote unquote help these people in the corporate office. Um, and what happens is they're not helping, they're distracting, they're hurting themselves. But it's worse than that, because if they stayed in the field while all their competitors were being distracted with
Mm.
trying to push this critter through the snake, um, then they have access to all of the people that are going to give them new business. And when you go in and you exit that market for that week to 10 days, you deplete your pipeline. And so the salespeople in that mortgage industry then have to get really busy for the next 2.5, 3 weeks to build the pipeline back up. And then what do? Every month, go back in and blow it out. And
Mm.
we start from zero. So many salespeople in that industry, if they've been in the industry 10 years, um, they haven't really been in the industry 10 years. They've been in the industry a month for 120 months.
Right.
It sounds awful. Uh, and so, why not make it easier on yourself and look for the opportunities where everyone else is distracted?
Mm.
And all it requires, in my mind, is that discipline.
It reminds me of that quote. Warren Buffett said, "Be brave when others are cautious. Be cautious when others are brave." And I think there's a lot of truth in that, because what I like is one of the things you said there, which I don't think people understand, is that this is not a zero sum game, right? You don't get to bank the progress you made and then stop and then pick up where you left off. You have to continue that progress. You and I were talking just before we started about this nutritionist plan that you've been on. And I said, I was going to ask you tongue in cheek. So, Jack, you've been working really hard for 4 months. You've had incredible results. You've been training 5, 6 days a week. You're following this macronutritional plan. So I guess you're going to stop all of that now, and then you're going to go back to drinking and eating what you want over the holiday period, because it's Christmas after all. But don't worry, you're going to pick up right where you left off when you come back to your nutritional plan and your training in January. Isn't that right?
and and you did say it tongue in cheek, because you
Yeah,
and I have spent enough time together to know that that is not the case.
sure.
Uh, and so I am an outlier when it comes to that, and I am massively disciplined, and I enjoy every day making my notes of all of the productivity that I've had with regard to whether it's the nutrition program or
Mm.
the strength training or whatever else goes on in my life.
Yeah.
Uh, there do I have some free days? Do I have some exceptions? Absolutely. So if my goal every day was a maximum of 2,200 calories, let's say, uh, I'm not going to go over that 2,200 calories, uh, except except well, Thanksgiving day, I came close to 4,000 that day,
Right.
and the wine was flowing, and the turkey was in, and the mashed potatoes were in, and so I broke bad for a day. But Friday, it was right back into the routine,
Hmm.
right back into the process, because it's the consistent process that salespeople need to really nurture along the way. And
Yeah.
that consistent process produces consistent results,
Yeah.
right?
And there's a few things in there that I think I want people to take away from what you've just said. Firstly, you don't get to pause progress. Right? That's not how that works. Whether it's you building a pipeline, being an elite salesperson, or, getting and staying in shape, you have to put in the work over time because you get incremental gains as you build that pipeline, as you build, what you famously call the clientele, people that come back and buy again. Those relationships are built over time. You don't get to take the holiday period off and do nothing and then just pick up where you left off. You actually lose progress. So you can't just pause times. That's the first thing. The second thing I heard you say is you actually enjoy the process of, putting the stuff in the app. What did I eat today? What did I train today? So you have a system of measurement for the activities that you're putting in. And isn't that so true as well when we talk about sales, right? We often talk about, write down your goals, have a detailed plan, have a system of measurement, and then have a system of accountability, right? That's the backward thinking concept that you taught me so many years ago. And a lot of salespeople this time of the year, what I don't see is them tracking activities or even knowing what kind of activities it is they should be doing when it is, quote unquote, a quieter time of the year. So what is it that you're doing every day to map out additional progress? Because let's be honest, your sales year for 2025 started months ago. I mean, if you're in a business to business and if you're in a complex business to business industry, I mean, the sales lag is probably 3, 6, 9, 12 months. You should already be seeing a significant portion of your forward order book now. And if you're not, well, you are chasing your tail a little bit. But
And
if you're not, then, the Chinese obviously famously say, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best time? Today.
today.
You need to be working on it today in order to actually build up, those leading indicators in order to make this next year successful.
So I wanted to jump in and pick up again on the word discipline.
Yeah,
So anybody in my world knows about my discipline. That being said, you and I both are big proponents of having coaches,
sure.
right? So Yvonne is my nutritionist coach, and um, my app is accessible by her. Every piece of meal that goes into this body is logged in the app. Um, I'm doing it for me, and I'm disciplined about that. But there's this little thing in the back of my head that says Yvonne has access to my app, and she's
Right.
checking me out on a regular, ongoing basis. And that knowledge that exists amps my performance up just that much better,
Hmm.
right? Uh, so a month ago, I was in Ireland, and Karen laughs at me about my lack of knowledge when it comes to what's a carb and what's a fat and what's a protein, and and I've learned a lot in the last 4 months with this nutritionist. But the hotel that I was staying in Dublin, breakfast was included, and there were 3 or 4 different types of fresh juices, and so we don't have juice in the house here at home, so I don't drink it. But it was there, and it was like it's part of the deal, and so I just had a couple glasses a day of juice to get my day started with my breakfast, and all of a sudden, Yvonne, my nutritionist coach, catches the column in the app that's this giant spike in sugar.
Hmm.
And it was a column that she and I had never talked about in the first 4 months of doing business together. And she's going, yo, what's going on? And we discovered it was the juice. And I said, but I didn't know that I needed to be concerned about that. And she said, well, I never needed to bring it up because it wasn't something that was ever a problem on your radar,
Right.
right? Um, who's doing that for you as a salesperson,
Mm.
and love that they're doing it to you, right?
Yeah.
Doing it for you. Um, I love Yvonne staying on top of me. You know, she's handling more than 80 clients and yet has the time to regularly check me out on my app and then contact me proactively and say, hey, um, you, the salesperson, you're not making enough calls here. Um,
Mm.
I don't want to hear about that it's Christmas week or it's Thanksgiving week or it's 4th of July week or whatever else the damn excuse is.
Mm.
Um, Somebody watching you is doing it in your best interest as a salesperson.
Yeah.
Really, that's what we have to get inside our
Yeah,
our
I
heads.
love that. And I love how having that system of measurement, so the app that you use, and then Vaughn is your system of accountability, right? She's holding you accountable by becoming doing the checks and balances for you. But I think what sits even behind that is the knowledge of what needs to be tracked, right? You were talking about tracking your macros and understanding what a carb and a
Yeah.
protein and a sugar is. And, it reminds me, I just got back early this morning from Seattle, and I was talking to CEO groups this week. And the group that I was speaking to yesterday, as I finished my 3-hour workshop with them, I said, okay, go into your notes and pick out one thing that stood out and that you're going to commit to doing between now and, let's say, the end of January. And we had it was a nice room. It was maybe 20 people in the room. And from memory, I think 5 of them picked that they wanted to update their scorecard, right? So what you would have the app for, they wanted to improve their sales scorecard. And I had talked to them about what the difference between a leading and a lagging indicator, right? A lagging indicator is the scoreboard. A leading indicator is what do you have to do today that is going to predict you being successful? And I often talk about that movie Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Everybody's seen it, where the Oakland Athletic changed the baseball because they realized that if you can get somebody on first, you can win games, right? And it changed baseball in the late 90s. And my question to them was, what is your equivalent of getting on first? And really, the message that if I had to give one message to business owners right now, this time of the year, but really in advance of any seasonal event, whether it's the summer holidays, it's Halloween, it's Thanksgiving, it's Easter, it's this, whatever it might be, I would love for business owners to be thinking, for sales leaders to be thinking, you know what? Even if there is ostensibly seasonality in my business, the one thing that I can always focus on are the leading indicators, the activities, the behaviors, and the habits that if I do them frequently, if I do them with integrity, if I do them with energy, any time of the year, it is going to predict success in the future.
Well, let's make it even more dialed in. I'm going to confess that there are industries that have seasonality.
Sure.
In those months where the business is actually slowing down because of the seasonality aspect, the increase in activity by the salesperson should be increased.
Mm.
uh, because it's that activity that's going to make it even more robust when that season to pick the fruit really arrives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the down period in the industry is the opportunity period for the
Mm.
salesperson, and we lose that because we get caught up in those lagging indicators and not the
Mm.
leading indicators. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because the busy season, that's the lagging indicators manifesting themselves.
Yeah.
But the leading indicator is on the off season, and you're driving the relationships, you're bringing them additional value. They have the affordability of time to spend more time and go deeper with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
For things that are going to take multiple months to put into place, we're now in the position to put them in over multiple months. All of that is those leading indicators. Um, and when you're working hard in the off season and your competitors are not, it's noticeable by your prospects and customers.
I love that. And I think that's probably a beautiful note for us to close on, Jack. We have to put the work in the off season, right? It's not a thing where sports teams will say, "Hey, season starts on April 1st. Tell you what, why don't we assemble on March 31st and we'll spend a day together and then we'll just go, go, go." Right? There's a lot of work that has to get done in the off season. So I think the message from today for everybody is, be brave when others are cautious. When it is a seasonal time, when you think it's a quiet time, that's the time to lean in. And I think you said it best earlier. You can make such incredible gains over your competition in your market if you're just active and brave and energetic when other people are kind of making excuses and are in denial about where we are in the year. Jack, thank you once again so much for taking the time to do this. I know you're a busy guy traveling as per usual. Hopefully, we'll get many more opportunities in 2025 to do these talks.
Great to see you. Great catching up. Have a great holiday, and to everybody, the same. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Jack. Happy holidays.
you bet.
Okay, perfect. I love that. That was awesome. Fun conversation.
Yeah, good stuff. You know what? It's a shame that most people